I love when I see my neighbor winning because that means God's in the neighborhood.
Ooh.
Right? Because that basically says that you're next.
Yeah.
If you keep going doing what you're doing, you're actually next. The average person can't overcome that type of adversity and then wake up the next day and keep going, knowing that there's no guarantee in this.
Yeah.
So you have to have such extreme confidence, such great faith that whatever this idea that you have is going to come to fruition. I think it goes back to it starts in the home. When I'm advising a lot of the parents behind the scenes, it's kind of unfair when parents are really kind of, trying to groom the kid and say, I need you to build relationships. I need you to win the room. If you really think about it, it actually starts with the parent. Because if a kid never sees the parent do that, what are they going off of? Because in essence, that's our calling. That's our responsibility, and that's our gift to the world of how we raise these little ones to make sure that they go off in the world and be able to connect with their purpose and then bless whoever they were called to actually bless.
How did you deal with grief?
Some of the most beautiful art comes from the most painful places.
Hey, what's up, Village family? Welcome to another episode of the Village HI podcast, a community for inspiration, elevation, and empowerment. I'm your host, Rocky Savoyana. It's been a little break, but man, we are here to kick off 2026 with a good one. I got a guy that I met about a year ago who truly just kind of changed the game for me and really kind of made something in my head, kind of like just flip and kind of turn on. So, without further ado, I want to introduce my host, Mr. Falvai, Mr. Island Avenue.
Man, thank you so much for having me on your platform. Truly an honor to be here, right here in the Aloha State. And just, great to be on this platform to be able to connect with our folks, man. So let's rock.
Man, let's rock. It is, we are, in the bowl season right now. You are here, representing University of California. I'm a Hawaii alumni.
Yes, you are.
So we got a good battle tomorrow. But, man, take us kind of a little through of what your regimen is right now through, coming here for the bowl game, what you're in town for and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, full circle moment for myself. As I mentioned on the PR run that we did yesterday, 30 years ago, I actually played in the Aloha Bowl.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, didn't get the result that we wanted, right? So we're hopefully
back
JKS,
for redemption, huh?
Right? Yeah, exactly. 30 years later. So hopefully JKS and the boys could take care of business. But being able to come back here, man, and connect a lot of the relationships, that I've built, over these 30 years, whether it's at University of California, Berkeley, or also here in Hawaii. Just to be able to connect with our community here, man, is totally a dream come true.
Nice.
From, as I mentioned yesterday in a lot of the PRs, a collision of both football and fashion, right, in my world. And so fast forward, now we're here being able to do a collab with Berkeley in terms of on the football side as well as on the apparel side. And that'll launch tomorrow at the bowl game, and then also being able to help with JKS, and his merch and what he's doing with his brand and their team as well. So definitely an exciting time to be a part of both programs, right? But also to be here and to share our culture, with the world. I've always said that Island Ave is a creative medium to be able to spread aloha, right? To be able to be a bridge to the rest of the world and spreading our culture and our cultural values, right? So I've been able to do that through apparel, and so it's just an exciting time to be able to share that message.
Nice. Before we go into the Island Avs, specifically, how did, you talk about relationships. How did this relationship, start with JKS? And for those who are tuning in, JKS is Jaren Sangapolutele, Keawe Sangapolutele from Campbell, record-breaking quarterback for us from Hawaii, now playing at Cal. How did that relationship form?
Well, first off, great young man that was raised by two great parents in a great village as well. It was actually just about a month and a half ago when we had launched that collab, the first collab with Cal. And so when I went up there, was able to reconnect with a lot of my relationships there. And obviously JKS was doing his thing, and he did his thing in his freshman year. And so was able to meet his family, the team, as well as his parents. And then, just like any relationship, we just started to build in terms of what they're trying to do on the merch side.
Yeah.
Right. Fortunate enough, back in LA, we have production in terms of manufacturing, but also building out a lot of brands, including Island Ave. And so they sought out my expertise as well as skill set in terms of, what can they do to actually build his brand. And so from there, it was just a phone call, Zooms, and then meetings. And, here we are today, unveiling his signature logo as well as some Cal Aloha pieces tomorrow. So, yeah, exciting times for the young man. But, JKS is, just one of those young ones that behind the scenes, fortunate enough, been able to connect with a lot of the parents, especially on the poly side, that their kids are going on, sort of like yourself. Kids are going on to play at the next level. A lot of the NIL stuff is coming into the picture. And so I just try to, be a resource, be a value on their journey, right? Because a lot of the times, there's not too many of our polys that be able to provide value and or advice, especially to our parents that are coming across, a lot of these multi-million-dollar NIL deals. And so
a lot of people get taken advantage of too, right?
Yeah, and so that's been happening as well. And so I just, as best as I could, provide guidance for them as well as their young men that are coming across these lucrative NIL deals. But I think my message has been consistent, whether it's poly or not, that what's the game plan for after football.
Nice.
Right.
Like I'm a Hawaii guy, you're a Cal guy, we're, respected alumni, from our respected schools, but you guys got like a little pipeline going on.
Oh, yeah,
Cal,
that's what I've been seeing.
I mean, you got JKS, you got my nephew Aiden Manutai, there's LeBron Williams from Kuku, Stan, I think he came from St. Louis, but there's this pipeline of kids. Why do you think Cal's an attractive place? I know this is a little off subject, but why do you think Cal is such an attractive place for our local boys?
I mean, first off, it's not too far from home.
True,
right?
West Coast.
It's just a 4 or 5 hour flight. And I've always said this, like in terms of our people, like the migration pattern coming from the South Pacific. A lot of us, Hawaii was our pit stop.
Yeah,
right.
True.
And a lot of us, if you think about it, stayed. Right. So this became our second home. And then for those that wanted to take a step further, we went to the States all along the West Coast. So whether it's all the way up to Seattle, the Bay Area, obviously LA, down to San Diego. That's kind of been our camping ground, so to speak. And then obviously within the West Coast, we have a lot of our Polynesian communities.
True.
And so it's almost like a home away from home. But this is the first time where we had a presence on the coaching staff.
Yeah. True.
Right. As well as, a lot of the kids that are signing. So hopefully, man, it opens up that pipeline for the kids that they don't want to stay local. You know what I mean? Come to Cal.
It hurts to see that. But, man, you know what? One thing I know about you is, and I feel the same way, you always want to see kids elevate. Yeah. You want to see people win. But I think that topic kind of leads right into, like, where we're going to is Island Avenue. It's not just a name. A lot of people, they start brands or they start, things and just slap a name. But Island Ave represents something more than just a name for you, right? Kind of tap into and explain to the people what Island Avenue is.
Yeah, well, first off, born and raised in L.A., specifically in Carson. And if you know anything about L.A. County, it was Carson, San Pedro, Long Beach, Compton, Harbor City area where a lot of Samoans congregated. Specifically, Carson was sort of like the meeting ground, and then they branched out to those neighboring cities. And so proud, again, Samoan mecca of so many Samoans that migrated to California. And then ironically, about 10 Samoan families moved on a street called Island Avenue.
Nice.
And so there we had community, we had culture, we had connection, we had spirituality. But also growing up in LA, we was also impacted by gang culture, in which a lot of my family members, as well as other family and friends that I lost to them streets, including my older brother, which was my hero in 92. And so fast forward, man, 33 years later, I strive to live a life that he could be proud of, right? Alongside a lot of the homies that went down and did California numbers and, calendar numbers in terms of the California State Prison. And so my goal was coming from that environment, how can we actually, elevate past, what our neighborhoods provided. And football was the conduit. Yeah. Football was the pipeline for us to get up out of the neighborhood. And so in 95, I graduated, walked on at Cal, and I'm a proud walk-on, because at the time, again, we were just trying to figure a way out of that environment, was able to earn the scholarship, and then here we are today. Yeah. But that's the core and or the ethos of, where Island Ave and the actual name comes from. And a lot of the times when I'm consulted upon in terms of how to build a brand, obviously it starts with the name. And I've always said that if you're going to start a brand, especially within apparel, do it with intention. Make sure that there's depth to it.
100%.
Right? And so when I do tell this story, a lot of the times they see me visually and they say, oh, well, that makes sense. Polynesian Samoan guy, Island Ave. And when I do say that that was the origin of it, everyone really is inspired by, the actual name. And my goal is to, obviously I still have family that lived there. And my goal is to share that story. Nice. Because I truly believe at the core of what Island Ave stands for is inspiration. Mm-hmm. And not only that, as I had mentioned, the migration pattern of us as Samoans, I think it's an immigration story that transcends race and religion and culture, right? That there were several of us that came from different parts of the world and chased after this American dream. It just so happened the Island Ave story is a Samoan story, right? And so my thinking is that every culture could relate to that inspiring story of what Island Ave stands for. And so through the creative medium of apparel, hopefully we could share that story with the world.
Yeah. Kind of stepping back a little bit, you talked about, your brother being like your hero, right? Yeah. Somebody that you idolized and looked up to. How did you deal with grief? You know what I mean? Because I feel like people can go both ways, right? Like you have something traumatic that happens in your life, especially to somebody that you look up to. You can either go a route that kind of takes you to destruction, or you kind of flip it, right? And you really build something that you are proud of and that that you paid homage to your brother. So how did you kind of deal with that situation?
First off, it's a great question. And growing up in the 90s at the time, mental health and that topic was not addressed, right? That's a more recent contemporary topic, which I'm glad that it's actually being addressed, right? Because it's definitely a topic and or a health condition that we really need to kind of unpack and at the same time address. So
and acknowledge it, because a lot of people they kind of just especially from a culture, right? From a culture standpoint. But carry on.
Yeah, so during that time, let's contextualize it. Although I come from a Samoan family, the immediate family is 10 of us. Yeah, I don't come from an extended family, right? So there's not a lot of cousins and aunties and uncles. It was just really us, right? So when you grow up in that specific type of dynamic, you're kind of wired in a way that no one's coming to help you. True. We're not going to have aunties and uncles and families that are going to fly in from Hawaii and Samoa for this funeral. And so when I saw that at the age of, I think it was 14, 15.
Well, it's kind of like a prime years, right?
Yeah,
there.
Prime years, right? It really wired me in the sense that if in fact no one's coming to save us, then I have to prep myself for this journey. And it provided me with the intestinal fortitude for the journey. And so in terms of being able to overcome grief and deal with loss, I looked at it in a way that, my brother's gone. And then obviously it happened abruptly. I think I mentioned this earlier, that a majority of my family members and friends before the age of 18 all died due to violence. Dang. And so it was this constant theme of violence, right? And when you deal with that at an early age and not have a mechanism on how to actually go through I believe it's the 5 stages of grief, you just find a way to cope with it. And so what I noticed was, obviously I internalized it a lot, and it resurfaced later on in the form of whether it was alcohol, partying, or whatnot. But what I did was, we grew up in the church, which obviously provided a spiritual foundation for us, which was great through my mom. But there was this ongoing theme of saying, in a sense, first off, I got desensitized to loss, became very cold because of the fact that you're dealing with loss so much that it was one of those things, man, I just got to move on.
It is what
right.
You
got to pick it up. Yeah. You just got to keep pushing and keep moving on and not dealing with it. Right. I didn't understand the 5 stages of grief till later on. And so I just created this mechanism internally, which was, okay, my brother's gone or the homie's gone. I just got to live a life that they could be proud of. And I kept on repeating that to myself. What is a life that they could be proud of? What are the positive things that I could do within myself, whether it's in the community or higher education or Division I football or business? What are things that I can do in the most positive light that their death wasn't in vain? Yeah. And I kept doing this over and over again. And so when I went off to Cal, I would, get calls back in the neighborhood. Hey, so-and-so got put down, or so-and-so went down and he's doing, 20, 30 years, right? There was this constant theme, but I would just remind myself, keep going. Live a life that they would be proud of, right? So fast forward, as I mentioned, when I found out about the 5 stages of grief, what I ended up doing was, at that time, it was probably like 20 years later, that I decided that I needed to go through those stages, because I find myself sometimes, my brother passed on December 20th. So this year it was 33 years. And I found myself over the years, just whether it was doing a workout or whether it was just cruising, bumping the oldies, I would just pause, just start crying.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And then obviously through, podcasts of therapists and when they would, talk about, grief, I'm
Makes
like,
you realize,
yeah,
right?
this is what I was going through, right?
Yeah.
And until I go through these 5 stages of grief, that's going to continue to happen, or it's going to resonate into other different things. And so what I decided to do was give myself grace and go through those 5 stages of grief, because the most, tragic loss was him.
Yeah.
Right? Because he meant so much to me. He was a father. He was an older brother. He was a great friend. He took on that father role, not only for me and my brothers and sisters, but everyone else in the neighborhood. And so I knew that at some point, that even as a father now, that I had to go through those 5 stages of grief to let it go, right? And it's okay to do that. And so answering that question was, one, I had to make sure that, hey, live a life that he would be proud of. And then 2, really, really go through those 5 stages. That way you can, finally just let it go.
And once you let it go, you can kind of actually really move on with life.
Yeah, you can move on,
you know? Because sometimes if you don't address something, you'll always at some point get brought back, right? You know what I mean? And I think, what's a good point too is you are able to keep his name living in a good way, right? Because some people, they spiral and they don't understand, like, man, you kind of wild out. You kind of bring a negative, like, image to the name that you actually want to highlight, right, in life.
Absolutely.
But, moving, as we go along, one thing that I did like that I've heard before is, this family home evening, right? In the Mormon church, family home evening is kind of like that weekly thing. And what I want to touch upon is because culturally, I think it's almost like taboo to talk about it, right? Like in the Polynesian culture, when, the adults or, your elders talk to you, you have no voice, really. And that's keeping it a buck, because it's really like what they say and what they tell you, you just do. You don't, you're not able to answer back, give your opinion. And I want you to touch upon this because for me, my kid's mom isn't of Polynesian descent. So she was always one that pumped them. No, let them talk. If they feel this, but I didn't realize until like years later, like, man, how much more I felt like our kids were able to like express themselves. But I want to hear your viewpoint on this.
Yeah. Well, first off, when I do address this, I actually wondered where I got the confidence to actually do public speaking from. Because as I kind of, on my path in terms of higher education and business or whatnot, I've always gravitated towards public speaking. And I always wondered, like, damn, well, where did that actually come from? So when I kind of took it back, I noticed that within a family of 10, that the FHE component, family home evening component, that was the origin of it.
You started off with a big audience already,
right?
Man.
Exactly, right? And so another thing is, if you grew up, within a dynamic of there's 10 kids, that if in fact you're not going to speak up, mom, you're not going to get hurt. Like you there's only so much attention that a parent can actually give 10 kids, right? And so I was one of those kids. Maybe it was, ADHD at the time that I needed the attention. So during family home evening, and I was fortunate enough to actually verbalize this to my mom, and I thanked her for it. She probably didn't know it at the time, right? But I can vividly remember these family home evenings, weekly meetings that we would have. We would open it up with prayer and the scripture, and then she would literally go
down the line.
Okay, Father, what do you have to say about this week and what's going on? And so I didn't know it at the time, but she basically was saying that your voice matters. Your opinion matters. I respect your opinion as your mother, and I'm giving you this platform in the home to be able to express yourself in the most respectful way. And when you're doing that week after week, month after month, as you grow up, you really end up creating a confidence within your voice. Because not only that, remember, as you're speaking, you're hearing yourself actually speak. and you're verbalizing and you're speaking with that you're developing the confidence. And if you notice, it started in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So if this person that brought me into this world says that she loves me and she's giving me this platform to speak, I'm growing confidence within my voice because I'm hearing myself put sentences together and building that confidence in my opinion and my perspective. But that started in the home and it started with family home evening. What I noticed was that matriculated into running for president at my junior high school.
Come on now.
But that's where it started though. That also matriculated into, again, growing up Mormon. Okay, well, who wants to, say the speech this week?
Yeah.
And who wants, who's going to go up there and have the courage to bear their testimony, right? Those are all elements to building your public speaking confidence within your public speaking.
Absolutely.
Right? And then going on to, I've always gravitated towards leadership positions. So captain of the football team, president of high school, and then going on to Cal, same thing. As a walk-on, I would still gravitate towards, I have something to say about this play or running down on kickoff team. And so fast forward, it was a natural transition for me to go into entrepreneurship because there's a leadership component in that. And then, with the public speaking thing now that confidence of being able to express myself and share my entrepreneur journey, again, it started with FHE. So it really connects for those that actually grew up in family home and evening. Because now they go, oh, wait, that's where I actually gained my confidence too in my voice. Now, on the flip side of this, I have to say this. I grew up around my other Samoan partners that didn't grow up within the church. So I would go to their homes and they grew up in a traditional Samoan family unit.
So you could see both sides.
Where there wasn't a family unit. Where there wasn't a family home evening component.
Where they didn't have the opportunity to speak.
They didn't have the opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
So in that traditional setting, again, it's almost disrespectful for you to actually speak, like verbally speak. What I also saw, that matriculated into school, into the workplace, into higher education, to where if it was him and I in the class and we were called upon to speak, I would obviously speak and he wouldn't. Right. So I saw that dynamic in a lot of my homies that I actually grew up with.
Yeah.
So I seen the advantage. I seen the confidence part. I seen the benefits of growing up and having that dynamic within the home of FHE. And again, as I mentioned, and I can't help to emphasize, shout out to moms, like she probably didn't know it at the time, but that seed that she planted in me, now I'm able to, have that confidence and, be on the podcast today and do it in public forums. And it's not just amongst, our polys. Like I'm fortunate enough to speak amongst, some high level folks.
Big brands,
right?
Man.
Big brands,
big
you know what I mean? And now, boardrooms and Fortune 500 companies, but that started in the home.
Yeah.
And that started with FHE.
I want to spend a little time on this because I smirk a little bit because I know how it is because I grew up as a Mormon, like my in the Mormon church. So it's funny because you go and speak as a young kid, you're speaking in primary, you're speaking in, you know what I mean, like sacrament. And if you guys don't know, so like the Mormon church, you would give like talks, you get picked, right? Or selected and you give these talks. And man, I remember as like probably like a 10-year-old having to bear my testimony and you go up and it's like that long walk all the way up the stairs, man. And then like they have this, the pedestal or where the mic is. And as a little kid, man, you pop your head up and sometimes they give you the stool. But you're so right because I do feel like a lot of kids that had that opportunity or people that, just in general, that had other opportunity to speak, you had to break like that nervousness or that fear because you're speaking to like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, you're speaking to your peers. Yeah. And, one thing I used to do when I used to sit back when I was young was I used to kind of like watch like the good speakers. Yeah. Some of them started off with a joke. Some of them said like a hook to start things off and it grabbed people's attention. But I think as time went on, like you lost that fear, And the reason why I want to touch upon this is because we're in an age of, entrepreneurship is huge. We're in an age of NIL. And for Polynesian kids and any kids, these deals can change your life. But a lot of these kids, I don't think they take it as serious. Because even my own kids, I try and train them up all the time. Like, it's about relationships. You have to learn how to speak, because if you don't have a voice.
Yeah.
How important is it for these kids to really understand, like, man, you got to get outside of those one-word answers, and you have to learn how to articulate yourself. And I think that's why I'm drawn. I'll be straight up, like, I drew to your energy is because when I hear you talk, when I hear you speak, like, it's, man, we get locked in. Like, there's an energy. But I think I want to highlight that for a lot of these young kids growing up, like the importance of it, because it can change your life, especially if you play sports,
Good point. And I was able to answer this question on other podcasts as well, and in different forms. I think it goes back to, it starts in the home.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I'm advising a lot of the parents behind the scenes, it's kind of unfair when when parents are really kind of, trying to, I guess, groom the kid and say, I need you to build relationships, and I need you to, when you walk in the room, and I need you to win the room. But if you really think about it, it actually starts with the parent.
Yeah.
Because if a kid never sees the parent do that,
what are they
what are they going off of? Right? And so I knew this early on, that my son was going to be on a big stage, where there was sports, where there was higher education, where there was business. So I actually had to show him what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
I had to show him what confidence actually looks like. I had to show him what public speaking actually looks like before I challenged him. And then going back to you, as you mentioned, when he was in primary, right? I would force him to go up there. He didn't know it at the time, but after he does, just like anything, you build confidence in your voice.
Repetition, man.
Repetition, just like anything, with backpedaling, playing linebacker or whatnot. Like, through repetition, you get better at it.
Yeah.
Because I knew at some point, because I saw the same leadership skills in him, that he was going to be in that position, and he was going to have to articulate his vision to whether it's teammates, whether it was the company, whether it was the community.
Yeah.
Right. So I knew that he had to have that skill set. So my thinking is that it really starts with the parents, right? Of saying, okay, well, what does confidence look like? When the young one is actually getting these NIL deals, and you're saying, like, okay, the talent is what got he or she the actual NIL deal.
Yeah. Got
right?
you to that point.
It got to you to that point. Now the question becomes is, do we have a financial foundation to be able to compound that NIL deal to where now their lineage can actually, be impacted in the most positive way for the rest, for generations to come, right? So that's a whole nother kind of dynamic, right? So I really think it starts with the parents. Second thing is, yes, the NIL deals that are coming in, especially for our poly folks, is great, right? It's life-changing, and we're seeing this in real time, right? But what I've always said is that the true, and I've texted you this a couple times, right? The true currency is in relationships.
100%.
Okay? And so aside from them having to navigate the NIL deals and what they're going to actually do with that capital, and we can go on and on with that in the next segment, what I've always expounded on, especially, with the parents and with the kids, is what are the relationships that your kids are building when they're going to these schools. And I've walked them through that, okay? Because truth be told, that when I talk about building relationships, and I had a call just the other day with a great, great family. Actually, one of the sons is actually playing for Cal, and another one is signing to Oregon.
Nice.
I said, look, we can go on and on about the NIL stuff, but what are the relationships that the kids are building? Second thing is, are we teaching the kids exactly what building relationships actually mean?
Yeah.
Right? We're saying, okay, build relationships. Okay, well, what does that look like? Is it meeting someone? Is it emailing someone? Is it calling someone? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
So there's been times where I've had a parent meeting. They brought their kid to my home, and we literally did a role play.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Jeff Bezos. You're so-and-so. We're in the same room at this booster dinner, gala, or whatnot. You're going to walk up to me. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to provide a great handshake.
Yeah.
You're going to look at me in the eyes. And then from there, you're going to somehow get my contact information, email, and you're going to follow up.
Yeah.
That's planting the seed of a great relationship.
Yep.
And then what's the follow-up look like? Okay, you emailed within the next 24 hours, and then you try to follow up with them by stopping by their place of business, and that's how you build a relationship. to where 20, 30 years later, like myself, you can go back and actually do a collab with Cal.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a testament of a relationship.
Yep.
And so growing up in LA, I've said this plenty of times since we landed that collab with Cal. I'm from LA. And there's been so many of our folks, Poly folks, Samoan and Tongan folks that have played for the UCLAs and the USCs. And coming from LA, I don't remember the last time, Samoan Tongan actually went back to these schools and did business. Now, again, they may have done it.
Yeah.
And that's great to see. But I think there needs to be more of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Visual presence.
Presence,
Exactly.
right? Because now it justifies us going out there and playing and putting our bodies on the line and putting our mind. And now that, another topic of CTE, I have to bring this up because it's really like kind of drives this point home that in '96, one of my African homies that we both signed, with Cal at that time, right? We played in Aloha Bowl together. Fast forward just this year, it was unfortunately he succumbed to the symptoms of CTE and he took his life, right? And so knowing what this game has done, right, in the most positive light, but also there's this other dark side of the game that no one's talking about, right? So, again, I can go on and on about these different topics when it comes to that, but going back to, your point of as parents, we need to exude what confidence looks like.
Yep.
We can't just force our kids to go to these schools and say, okay, build relationships.
Yeah.
Well, what does that actually mean?
Yep.
And I jokingly said to the Samoan couple, to the son, I said, hey, if you see me work in the room among some, Palangi people that have Tommy Bahama shirts over here and at the shirts in Hawaii, well, you know exactly what I'm doing, right? Exactly. I'm working the room, building these relationships because that currency, you can come back 30 years later, 40 years later, and be able to build something special. So,
confidence, because a lot of this stuff that I try to pass it on to my kids. If I do a speaking engagement, if I do anything, I bring out my phone. The first thing they're like, oh, Dad, you're going to bring out your phone. Like, for me, it's like, I want them to see, like, hey, if you're trying to be like, I'm trying to build a village. I want people, like, my whole goal in this is to make people realize or let them understand, like, we're all a part of some type of community. Yeah. We're all some type of village. But I believe in this so much that, to me, I told them that you got to get over your fears. Whether you're speaking in front of, random people outside of like the mall or whatever it may be, that confidence. Because even like, I want you to touch upon this, like the way you're dressed, right? Yeah. Somebody from Hawaii may be seeing you walk around to like, man, like this, like he don't look like one of us. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the confidence is what you believe in, what you're building, and I kind of like touch upon that of building these kids' confidence. Yes, it starts at home, but why is it important for maybe a viewer, a young cat, watching this to understand, like, no, I really do have to be confident in what I do. Because if I don't believe in myself, who will? Who will?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think you bring up a good point when it comes to why I even went into fashion, right? And that question has come up. And I didn't know it at the time when I really started to go back to, what my childhood looked like. Growing up in the 90s and growing up in that time, especially in L.A., gang culture was very, very prevalent. And so when you came across somebody from these different neighborhoods, whether it was the color, there was a specific, let's just call it a uniform that they wore, right? Yeah. Khaki suit, Cortez, Lokes, like this is what you saw. Yeah. So when you saw the person, they didn't really have to say anything.
You identified,
but you already knew what time it was, what time it is, right? Yeah. Based off of what they were actually wearing. So when I saw that concept, I was like, wow. I think it's really cool that you could really put some clothes on, like an outfit, and express yourself without even verbally saying anything. Yeah. Right? So I thought that component was dope, just, through fashion. And so during that time, I had, with my brothers, as well as a clique that we had, because a lot of us didn't succumb to the gang thing, obviously I had my older brothers doing that, but they were always, really, really, hard on us and saying, hey, I'm living this life so you don't have to. So what we did was we did the total opposite. So obviously we played football, but then we would, we were like, okay, that's what everyone else is doing. We're going to put together these quirky outfits and it was, in a way, it was really, first off, going against the grain. Yeah. And then two, it was us saying, like, this is our way of expressing ourselves. We don't want to do that. So we're going to express ourselves through fashion. Yeah. And so that's where technically a lot of the self-expression And if you think about it, like I bring up this outfit that I was totally inspired by, and fast forward to date, I created our version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this specific outfit, shout out to my brother Lone, was, he put together, and he was very good at this. And again, because he's the brother right above me, I would watch the kind of outfits he would put together. And so he literally he did a customized kilt. At the time, Doc Martens is what it is now. But growing up in LA, you only could find Doc Martens at a really boutique store in Redondo Beach.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, mind you, these things were going for $200-$300. This was in the 80s, 90s, right?
Like $3,000 today.
Right, exactly. And so he put this outfit together. It was a biker jacket, this custom kilt, and these knee-high Doc Marten boots. Yeah. Now again, in the 90s, that takes a lot of confidence for somebody to go to Carson High looking like that, right? So it gave me confidence to say, man, if my brother could like creatively put this outfit together, well, I want to do the same thing. Yeah. And so I would put these outfits together. That's where my, I guess you could say, fashion sense started. And then being able to step out into that dynamic where everyone was gangbanging and say, nah, y'all doing that with, I'm going to express myself through fashion.
What was that feeling like though? Because I mean, it's a lot
right?
to step out.
Right, exactly.
When everybody else,
when everyone else is gangbanging, and they were like that. But I think it was more so if you grow up in that environment, and especially for those that grew up in LA, that you gain your respect based off of that confidence, because everyone knew where you stood. Yeah. Right. So they actually respected us for doing that because now we know exactly. They knew it's like, oh, nah, that. That's Vi and them and my brother Lom, and they do the football thing, and that's their thing. Yeah. And you gain your respect by what you stood for, right? Aside from the gangbang thing. And so fast forward, because I was able to express myself through fashion earlier on, I knew exactly, like it was right there the whole time. Yeah. And so when I decided to go on this entrepreneur road, I was like, man, fashion was there the whole time. Now what I'm gonna do is build a brand in which a lot of that growing up in LA and that self-expression and streetwear, combining that with, roots of the South Pacific, that's the ethos of what Ananav stands for. Nice. And so now when I put together like this custom like shirt that I have on, the confidence was there in the 90s. Yeah. So now, I'm walking into gangbanging environments and I stand on what I stand on because of that's where the origin of it was. And so, walking in with the, the first, I guess you could say the collection, flying up to Seattle and landing the Nordstrom deal. I mean, come on, all the confidence was already there, right? 30, 40 years later, right? So being able to explain the pieces and the origin of, Island Ave, like, that confidence, man, was 30 years in the making. Yeah.
Talking about Nordstrom, you're the first Polynesian brand to be featured in Nordstrom. And I want to talk, a lot of this stuff that, it's kind of like we're tapping into business, we're tapping into like cultural upbringing. But, when somebody talks about being confident, a lot of times I think they mistake the delivery. Yeah. Right? Because it's like some people feel like they got to be boastful and arrogant. You can shut a lot of people off, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of businessmen in a Nordstrom or, businesswomen in a Nordstrom setting. How important is it for people to understand you can be confident, but your delivery and how you articulate yourself is super important?
Yeah. Well, first off, in the context of confidence within our Polynesian culture, as we had mentioned, it's almost a form of disrespect. Yeah. Right. And so growing up in that dynamic, as I've always said, that in a way you're suppressing the kid's confidence because of the fact that you're not giving he or she a platform to actually speak.
A voice.
Right. A voice. And so fast forward, as I've always said, and, before we started, that if in fact we're going to create a generation of entrepreneurs, then we have to address this confidence piece. And as I had mentioned, that confidence within myself came within the home. Yeah. So now it's kind of like going back to the parents. Like, how are you raising these kids to one day say, I have so much confidence within myself that I'm willing to jump off the porch and launch a business and bet my last whatever $5,000 on this concept and or idea that I have, right? So that confidence obviously starts in the home. As I mentioned, like, it's been a huge component for me, stepping into these boardrooms, landing these collabs, these partnerships. But my thinking is, especially from a Polynesian standpoint, that the duality, I guess you could say, between confidence and humility.
Yeah.
right? So that's it.
I mean, that's a huge foundation pillar in
Yes.
ourselves is humility.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like sometimes people, like, especially I think the elders or generation before us, they look down on us like, man, you're not humble no more.
Yeah.
But it's like, to really make it amongst all this competition, all these people around me, I have to speak up for myself. You know what I mean? But it's like, how do we deliver that?
Yeah, and great question and or comment about delivery.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've always said that those two characteristics can actually coexist. It's all in the delivery. And I'll give you an example. What I noticed was along my journey in these high level meetings and pitch meetings or whatnot, that what I was doing it the whole time, meaning this, I would lead with humility and then follow up with extreme confidence, supreme confidence.
Let me cement that right behind it, yeah.
And so if you notice, us as Polynesians, when we get together, especially in a formal setting, it's always lead with humility. First off, thank you so much. Like you're thanking, right, the community for this opportunity, right? And then, in essence, really, you're following up with confidence, the message that you want to deliver for that day. And then you conclude, again, with humility and gratitude. Thank you again so much. Right? Like you follow up, right? So, but you don't, again, unless we verbalize it in that way, no one knows. Like, but it was really there the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? So whether it was the Norshams, the Tillies or whatnot, I did the same protocol every time. First off, thank you guys so much. It's a great opportunity, dream come true to be here, share Island Nav, and then boom, here comes the confidence, right? But I do want to address this, that it does come off, I guess, I guess in a way, when you grow up in that dynamic and then you come across somebody that's very, very confident, it's how this person that grows up in that dynamic interprets it. Because you grew up so much in saying, you need to be humble, you need to be humble, you need to be humble, then you come across, whether it's poly or not, someone that's very confident, you interpret it as, oh yeah, well, that person talks about themselves too much and they're not humble. When in essence, the core of building confidence is really affirmations. I am great. Right? I will be great. I am the best in the game. And I will accomplish my goals. That's the core of actually building confidence. But when you come across someone that actually grows up in that other dynamic, right, it comes off as if, oh, well, that person's not being humble. I bring that, or I say that to say this. When I've been in these high-level boardrooms, when I've been in these high-level meetings with other folks that exude that same confidence, there's a certain energy that's in that room. Okay? And so when I walk in and I see all these high-level heavy hitters that are in this room, before anyone actually speaks, there's almost an undertone and an understanding that as soon as you get your time to speak, you better come with it. Chin up, chest out.
And you don't got a lot of time, man.
And you don't have a lot of time,
100%.
right? Because amongst other heavy hitters, time is of the essence. So we get right to it.
And you're lucky you got this opportunity.
You're lucky you have these opportunities. So when you do have that opportunity, you better be able to speak with that confidence, especially if you're trying to pitch a product. Because if you come with that kind of submissive, not really, speaking confident or not even having eye contact with the person, they're looking at like, bro, like, why would I even purchase your product? You don't even seem confident in that product.
You don't even feel energetic about it.
Right? So I knew that going into these boardrooms, especially pitching, right? Because when you're trying to land a retail deal, you're really pitching your product. So I knew the energy, like you had mentioned when we first met, I had to give off that energy in order to actually close the deal. So I had to exude clarity. I had to exude confidence in my voice, in my product to actually land the deal. So when I'm in these platforms or on this stage amongst our people, I try to verbalize it and articulate it in a way where it's respectful, talking about confidence. It's respectful, talking about humility and how those two traits can actually exist. And hopefully, again, it resonates.
No, I think it is. And from a flip side, like I see a lot of these athletes, right? You talk from a business standpoint. I look at it like after a pregame, I get that MVP. You hear kids or you hear, these athletes going, oh, yeah, man, I've been on the grind. Me. hey, you can still articulate that and deliver that, but it's be like, hey, man, I want to appreciate, if I'm a running back or quarterback, I appreciate my O-line. They block for me. These guys been, my teammates have been on the ground with me all summer. Started off with that type of pitch, and then you lead into it. And, man, this year I really took that year to really just dedicate myself and go on about yourself. But then you followed up with another, a humble statement at the end.
Exactly.
But I think you touching upon that, like, it really showcases these kids to understand, like, man, you got to understand that you can still be confident. Yeah. And like you can pair that humility with it, but now you gave that example, and I think so many people miss out on that because, they see kind of what's on TV, they see what's on social media, and it's always just me. But don't lose our culture standpoint.
Absolutely.
But also bring I can blend the new times.
Absolutely.
I can bring it together. I love that. Talking about Nordstrom, I've always, I guess, kind of embraced being the underdog. I've embraced being that dude. Like, man, you don't look like you're a big Samoan cat. You got tattoos. You look like that. How does it feel for you when you walk into a room and you already kind of get discredited, by your look, or like, man, what's this dude in here? What kind of feeling you got? Because you're a competitor. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of feeling do you have when you walk into these rooms of Nordstrom, of Nike, and stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, again, to contextualize it, right, in terms of apparel and/or fashion. Remember, you want to stand out, right? You don't want to look like every brand out there because why would they even take the meeting? Mm-hmm. And I've always said this because there's been questions of how we did land a lot of these deals was prior to us actually landing the meeting, what I would do was do a walkthrough in these retailers and say, okay, well, if I was just your average Nordstrom customer and you had Island Ave next to the Mary's or the Rudes or the Billionaire Boys Club, would I actually purchase this? Right? Just keep it a buck. And so I had confidence enough in the product and what the brand story actually meant and the impact that it's made, locally in the community, that when I did walk into that Nordstrom boardroom and finally pitch the buyer, the confidence, the way I walked, the way I actually brought the product, the music that I actually set the stage. He was like, Vi, I'm gonna step out for like 5 minutes. Go ahead and, get everything set up. I had to set the vibe. Yeah. And what I did, I think it was Boog or Common King. I put on the jams and, I laid it out a certain way. Mm-hmm. But there was confidence in me even setting up the presentation, right? But remember, prior to me landing the meeting, I did that walkthrough. And so a part of that presentation was there's nothing like this brand on the floor now. Yeah. So I came from that angle. Not only that, as you had mentioned, I'm going into a building that's been there for 100 years. Dang. Okay? That Nordstrom headquarters has been there almost 100 years, 100 plus years. Okay? I knew for a fact there's never a poly that walked up in there with neck and face tats that look like me, right? So I'm trying to stand out
security,
as much, right? Exactly. Like
somebody's
they're
lost
like,
downstairs.
no, you can't go up. Someone has to come down. It was one of those kind of buildings, right? And I utilized that to my advantage because I knew that. So I leaned into that. Yeah. So another question is, was there ever a time that you feel like you had to water down the culture, right? Or, kind of check the culture at the door or not even bring it up? And I said, well, hey, y'all, like visually, how am I supposed to do that? Wear a turtleneck? Yeah, like, what am I, you know what I mean? Like, I can't hide what I really am.
And I'm going to look like them.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And so I've always said that, and it goes back to, me growing up in a gang environment. Like, you stand on what you stand for. Yeah. Like, whether visually or your characteristics or the principles, like, that's how you gain respect. Yeah. That's how you make your mark in the market. Yeah. Is by what you stand for and what your brand stands for and the ethos of it and the aesthetic of it. So walking into that meeting, I knew I had to stand out so much and make an impact so much that the guy walks out of that meeting like, man, I've never even seen first off, I've never seen a dude that looked like the dude. Yeah. And second, we've never had a brand like this. Mm-hmm. So in essence, it was the culture, it was the brand story, it was the aesthetic that stood out so much that they gave us a shot. So the take home point is, or lesson, especially for our poly folks, was you need to lean into that. Yeah. Right? I leaned into being Samoan and Polynesian and our culture and growing up in LA, right? Because no one could beat you at being you. 100%. There's already someone else. Yeah. Lean in on you.
You one-on-one,
and your
man.
story, right? So that's why when I talk about the Island Ave story, it comes off so convincing and so authentic.
Because it is.
Because it is, right? There's no facade behind it. you get who I am right off the rip or not, right? And then not only that, I really want to emphasize this other point. If in fact there are some predispositions before I do come in the room, and people make up their mind based off of what I look, I don't want to do business with people like that.
That's a good point.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you didn't even get to know me.
Yeah.
You didn't even get to know the brand.
Yeah.
And remember, at the end of the day, this is business. So you didn't even give a chance to get the brand on the floor to see if it even sells.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if in fact I come across people like that, bro, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah, I'm good. You can walk
Right?
away from that.
Yeah. I have confidence enough to walk away from that.
You know, before we talk into, I want to kind of lead into entrepreneurship next. But before that, you know, you talk about gang culture, right? It's something that you lived, you know, you were, I mean, the center of it.
Yeah.
You know, down here in Hawaii, I feel like, you know, you do have people that come from LA or California, from other places where I guess it's been highlighted on TV, right? The MTVs, the BETs, whatever it may be. They come down here and, you know, we do have housings down here in Hawaii. And I think I grew up with some friends who lived in the housing who struggled with giving up kind of like the lifestyle of that. And I felt like they had so much potential. Being from where you're at and being so many years later removed, you know, it's better to be successful instead of being locked up, right? It's better to make something of yourself so that you can contribute and give back to the people that, you know, that you're around. What kind of words of encouragement or advice you can give to people that, you know, especially I think this younger society, they struggle, right? Because they see what's on the TV or on social media. They want to be like that, but they don't realize, like, man, like, it's actually better to make something out of myself. You know, like, what kind of words can you give at that point?
Well, first off, Rocky, man, I think it's a great question, especially from a Polynesian standpoint, right? It broke my heart to see how and again, I speak about this in this way because the pain I had to go through at a young age, right? Really, really pain that tore my family apart, my community apart.
Yeah.
And so when I refer to gangbanging as a disease, that's exactly what ended up happening. And to see that same disease has impacted our communities here in Hawaii, in New Zealand, throughout the South Pacific, it really, really breaks my heart because I see the pain that came about within our community in LA. I've seen so many of my homeboys and, you know, that went down and did life, right? And never came home, right? So many funerals, as I mentioned, a lot of my family members died due to violence, you know, before the age of 18. So I seen that part of gangbanging, right? Aside from now, obviously everything's, you know, glorified in a sense, you know, on the internet. And it breaks my heart because no one's addressing the pain that this brings communities, the aftermath.
Families,
you know, a mom losing a son, like no one talks about that. The funerals, not being able to pay for these funerals.
Or even the kids, right?
And then the kids, they lose a parent. You know, whether it's, you know, the father goes off and does life or the father is gone for good, right? No one addresses the pain that has on the family and on this community, right? So to see that, you know, obviously hip hop culture has glorified that. And not only that, you know, to see that a lot of our folks that have, you know, grew up in the housings and the housing projects here and they see what goes on in LA. And obviously me being able to travel the world and then look at it from outside looking in, I see the impact that LA culture has on the world.
Yes, I mean.
Right?
Yeah.
Where there's gang culture, lowriders, that whole nine. But no one's talking about the painful part. Right? And so I'm glad that you actually bring that up because as I mentioned that, I speak from a point of view of losing so many family members to the streets. And what I decided to do, and my brothers and sisters decided to do, my family, my son, was to do something positive, right? And be an example of resilience. Like how can you, you know, overcome such extreme adversity earlier on? And how can we make something of ourselves? And then go back to that same community that was burdened by gang culture and give back and repair and uplift and inspire the community versus, you know what I mean, losing so many of the lives to it. Now, granted, I still got, you know, family members that are still involved, right? But all I'm saying is this, especially to, you know, our folks that are, you know, that are living here and have been impacted by this, I'm trying to tell y'all, man, that pain has lived with me for 33 years, right? And I've had to figure out how to move on, right? And so what I noticed that, especially with a lot of my family members that have died to that, is the best thing that I could do to uplift their name and the impact that they made on my life is to do something positive.
Come on now.
Right. And so that's why I'm here, on your podcast and, on behalf of Berkeley and UH and doing something so positive. So when people actually see me and tell the Island Ave story, I could uplift their memory, their legacy, right? Despite the adversity. I had launched a short film called Follow Me Home. And within that film, I said, man, some of the most beautiful art comes from the most painful places, right? And that's the story of Island Ave, right? So when people talk about the gangbanging thing, I'm like, hey, dog, I had an OG that came home 35 years, right? He was a hitter in Pelican Bay. So if you know anything about, I guess you could say the California state prison system, you knew they put the worst of the worst there, right? In Crescent City. And so for him to actually get his sentence commuted and come home, they gave him 150 years plus life. He wasn't supposed to come home, right? His sentence was commuted, the great things that he did, and he came home. And he's telling me, right? He was one of my older brother's great friends. And now he's trying to pick up the pieces in 2025 with his life, right? So especially to the young ones that are involved now, all I'm saying is this was somebody that has a name in LA, right? Served all them 34 years, and now
they got a resume.
Yeah, he got a resume when it comes to that, right? And he's telling me if he was to go back, he would have never done it, right? So hopefully, again, that sheds light on the reality of gangbanging and what that did within our community, because a lot of the times, especially growing up in LA, no one wants to talk about our Tongan brothers and sisters that grew up in the Inglewoods and the Hawthorns and the Lenox area, right? And then also us Samoans that grew up in the Harbor area, and then the wars that went on with us, right? No one wants to talk about all that. Yeah. But what I want to say is that growing up in that environment and how many people that we lost to that, it's a sad truth. And there's no way out in it, right? So hopefully, man, that sheds light on what gang culture again has, how it impacted our communities here, and that the truth of the matter is that all it did was just bring pain and loss. And the best thing you could do, especially for our folks here, is to do something so positive with your life that it really uplifts those that we lost to them streets.
Absolutely. During this interview, like I want to ask questions, and you give, outlook on it, because I can't talk about gang life. You know what I mean? I've been around people that lived in the housing and stuff like that. We're a part of that, but I didn't live that life. Yeah. Having somebody like you can really speak on that because that was like the lifestyle, right? And I think, you brought up a good point about people giving back, because, I grew up around this housing called Halava Housing right here in IL. And, there's these guys that came, or this group that came back and made this foundation called MOB, the foundation, and they're removed, they're like in their 40s, early 40s, but they're giving back. They're doing community stuff for the housing. I know other people, like, this girl, that lady that we had on earlier, Trisha, she goes back to the housing, gives back, but it's like highlighting, but people are so removed, like years later, it clicks in their head and realizes it, right? But that's really what it's about, is being able to go back and give inspiration and give support and go help, because that's really what this life is about, is giving back, as we, get into the next thing about entrepreneurship, I feel like social media kind of like just glazed entrepreneurship as this great thing. Yeah. I look at it differently. I feel like for you entrepreneurs out there, for you people that support entrepreneurs, I feel like you got to be kind of like just off in the brain.
You got to be crazy.
It's because it's like really like entrepreneur. Everybody's like, I want to start this. They don't understand. Like you really use all your money. You lose money. You go into debt. Yeah. You face the biggest problem. Like you order a whole order and the whole thing is wrong. You got to figure out
wrong.
It's like you got to be so like skillful, as in like, how can I adjust and pivot? Like I feel like an entrepreneur is a glorified person that can just get over any obstacle. Yeah. However, how you've been in this game, how has that been for you?
No, I think that statement is so spot on, right? And that's why I've always said, when people ask in terms of entrepreneurship, is it for everyone? I don't think it is.
No, it
right?
ain't, man.
I wouldn't wish it on everyone, right?
You sit a whole night trying to figure out, man, what am I gonna do? Yeah, right? How am I gonna do it?
Are these kids gonna eat? How am I gonna pay for this cell phone bill? Like the most basic stuff. What do I get myself into? Yeah. Right? That's why I said, like, the average person can't overcome that type of adversity and then wake up the next day and keep going, knowing that there's no guarantee in this, right? Yeah. So you have to have such extreme confidence, such great faith that whatever this idea that you have is going to come to fruition day in, day out, knowing that you don't really see, any guarantees in it.
Yeah, man.
Right. And so that was ironically what drew me towards it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the crazy thing about it.
But I think that's a part of like being an athlete too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Is that come up? Like you talk about you being a walk on.
Yeah.
Like your goal, I mean, your thing from a walk on is like, I'm gonna prove these people
yeah.
and I'm gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's why, like for me, I think blending like the athlete side and business is great because it's like, man, I face this on the field.
Right.
I don't know if I
Absolutely.
can actually run that extra
Right.
110. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can make it to this 2-minute drive, but I did.
I did. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so like I feel like
And
they're carrying.
if you remember this morning, when I did my morning routine, I texted you. I said game day.
Game
So if
day.
you think about it, like there's a lot of parallels that I still exemplify to this day in
100%,
terms of
man.
athleticism and or playing football and business. So every time I have a big event, every time and again, I'm just playing a different game.
Yeah.
Right. So even yesterday, like the team, with JKS's team, and I woke up that morning, I was like, hey, it's game day.
Come on, man.
Let's go.
Yeah.
It's game because I'm putting myself in that mindset as if we're actually going to be playing a game. I'm just playing a different game now. Right.
I wanted to just stop at that. I went to go speak to an elementary class last week.
Yeah.
Probably like 10 kids. I still went in the same mindset as if I went to talk to an auditorium of 500
Yep.
people.
Absolutely.
And like that's the mentality we come with. Like it doesn't matter. I'm not going to shortchange nobody, and I'm always going to bring my best because you never know who just might pop in or who might stop by.
Absolutely.
And just hear that one little thing, and it might get you to that next thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, man.
Yeah, but that same athleticism, that same athlete mentality, I still, man, that's a day-to-day thing, which is why if you notice a lot of the times successful entrepreneurs have an athletic background because it's that competitiveness in them. It's that I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do what it takes to make it happen. It's that
By
grit,
all
that
means.
grind,
Yeah.
right? It's that walk-on mentality, like no one's going to give you anything. You got to earn it. So there's a lot of parallels to both of those actual paths that I still, exude to this day. So it's been a great journey, though.
Nice, man. Hey, I want to talk about this journey a little bit. So it's been in conversations I had with other friends before, but like I never, I got a little taste of the league.
Yeah.
I didn't make you were a walk-on. You got a scholarship, right? But you became this great businessman. I've been able to build some things and I'm growing. But what can you tell people who's watching right now? It doesn't matter, like, I guess your status of where you may start at. Because you can't see the trajectory of what you can be. Because I know a lot of people who made it to the league who played a long time, who kind of fizzled and it's kind of like trying to navigate what life is.
Yeah, what
you know what I
life
mean?
is, yeah.
So like, what can you say to that?
No, I mean, on my journey, and I think it stemmed from, I guess, the way I was raised. I've always played the long game,
Yeah.
right? And I had this kind of intuition, this intestinal fortitude of what is life after football,
Come on now.
right? And I saw that earlier on, mainly because I started to see exactly what you said. A lot of guys going on to play D1 and then playing in the league and then coming back to the hood with nothing.
Yeah.
So logically, as a kid, I'm like, wait, you made it to the league and this is what you
This
have
is
to show
it.
for it?
Yeah.
Like, this is it? And you're just right back to doing what everyone else is doing. So I was saying, like, man, there has to be something after this that I had to prepare myself for.
Yeah.
So I've always played
The long game.
the
yeah.
long game, right? But then if you notice at the core of what entrepreneurship is, you have to play the long game. Nip talk about a marathon because it truly is.
A marathon. Man.
And it's a non-guaranteed marathon. No one's telling you like, hey, if you run this marathon, you're going to make it in the end. No, there's still no guarantees, right? But true entrepreneurship or true success in building a business and in entrepreneurship, you're playing the long game, right? I'll give you a great example. We technically part-time launched, in the neighborhood Island Ave in 2014. Okay. Started off in the hood spot where you buy the pro club, socks, the whole nine.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward, Rocky, 10 years. It was 10 years almost to the date when we landed the Nordstrom deal.
Dang.
So all I'm saying, I bring up that example is, what about if God told you that I'm gonna give you the Nordstrom deal? You just got to hold on for 10 years.
Not a lot of
How many
looking, man.
people will commit?
I want to add something to that. How do you stay consistent in that?
Yeah.
It's because you can have some really good days, And then some days where you don't want to do it. But like you said, to make it to that 10-year mark or that 30-year mark, what is some words of encouragement that you can give to people? Because that's a true struggle. Is like, how do I like not blow my load and still show up the next day?
Well, you know, what I've always said, especially for those that are going down this journey, and it could be any career path, right? As you had mentioned that a lot of the times you don't really see, you know, what it's going to look like or how long it's going to take, but you do see the path in front of you, right? And so what I've always said that what keeps me believing, what keeps me staying on the path is when I set goals, there's certain milestones along the way.
Nice.
Right? There's certain landmarks that I hit. And when I'm able to hit these landmarks, it's a sign, it's an indication that one, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And two, it's God telling me, keep going. Right? So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Despite the days where it's like, man, I don't know how we'll make payroll. I don't know how we're gonna do, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Because those are honest obstacles, things that come up on the daily, right?
This is in real time, right? And at one point, I thought, I was like, man, is it just me? And then when I started to look at other, you know, entrepreneurs that I aspire to be like and look up to, I'm like, oh no, everyone goes through this. This is part of the game.
And that's why I asked it. For all you guys tuning in, that's why I asked it, because everyone posts the wins. Nobody posts man, I don't know.
No one posted these L's, right? How are we gonna pay for this lease in the studio, right?
Man, my kids got registration and travel, man. I don't know.
I don't know how I'm gonna pay for this, right?
And we still gotta front this next drop, right? All this stuff, man. But that's why I asked it, because that's true, man. Like, I want to like make it a norm to be like, man, we all struggle with this. But also too is, I love how like you talk about, man, you gotta gravitate towards these giants, these these titans. Why is the environment important for people? Like, to make sure that they check and address that they're around the right environment.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question as well. You know, shout out to my neighborhood where I grew up at, you know, the whole city of Carson, both sides, all sides. The lifestyle and the entrepreneurs that I aspired to be, truthfully speaking, didn't live in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I noticed was when my son went on to play in high school, he played in one of the powerhouses, Modern Day, in Orange County.
Okay.
We knew about these guys because I shipped my brother there in early 90s. That's a whole nother story. But I got a taste of what Orange County was earlier on. So I knew at some point when my son was going to play, we were going to take him there. Fast forward, we did. What I noticed was when I was around this specific environment, the parents that brought their kids to this specific school was successful entrepreneurs. And so me being the person that I am, a relationship-driven person, I started to build relationships with them.
Yeah.
Then it was an invitation to stop by the house, an invitation to stop by the business, and that opened up my whole world.
And it's bringing you outside of like your norm.
What I'm normally used to being around.
Because the conversations change.
Everything
the
changes.
change,
Energy
right?
changes, everything. And that's a great point. And I can't help to emphasize that. When you're around successful people, notice the word choice.
Come on, man.
Notice the conversation, right? So fast forward, we're in Orange County now. I'm getting invited to different engagements, to their home, place of business. And what I saw there changed my life forever.
Yeah.
Right? Because now I'm in affluent neighborhoods around affluent people that have built successful businesses, and that changed everything. And so what I noticed, going back to your question, was I needed to change the environment.
Come on.
Because once I changed the environment and I got around those people that I aspired to be, now I'm that much more closer to where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so I have mentors specifically in Orange County and they are all successful in different industries that I still connect with to this day in terms of, you know, I guess you could say my advisory board, but it wasn't until I changed the environment and I got around those people that I aspired to be, where I physically, there was an interview that I did, I physically had to move there.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you got to do that. And you got to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's a leap of faith, man.
And it's a leap of faith, right? And when I say affluent neighborhoods, there's an underlining tone that when you move to these affluent neighborhoods, you don't have to, you know, talk about what you do, but there's an understanding that, hey, if you live here, you're obviously doing something successful to either buy this home or pay for this lease.
Yeah.
And so more often than not, when I have lived in these affluent neighborhoods, and whether it's the gym that I'm working out at, or the pool that I'm sitting by, that person is a business owner. Okay?
Yep.
Versus the community that I grew up in. That's not the business owner, right? So it was, I had to gravitate, or I had to literally like, transplant my family to these neighborhoods and live, and these are my neighbors now, to build these relationships, because these are people that I aspire to be, like from an entrepreneur standpoint. So
I'm gonna touch upon that a little bit. So backstory of like our relationship that kind of spawned over a year ago, and the reason why I wanna, you don't like to take like praise.
Yeah.
Like this guy defers praise and any type of acknowledgement. But I'm gonna shout this guy, give him some flowers, because about a year ago I met Falvai at I think House of Blues in Anaheim. Went to watch a King stuff, and I seen him, from a distance. And for me, I was like, man, I just introduce myself. Like I've never been the type of person like, oh, I'm too good. Like, oh, I'm gonna see it. You know what I mean? If I look up to somebody, I'm gonna say what's up. I'm gonna introduce myself, right? And we were all in that VIP ticket line, and it was a quick one. But later on, when we got upstairs, we crossed paths, and I asked Falvai, "Hey, Oos, can I buy you a drink?" And he was like, "Oh, Oos, I don't drink." Boom. I was like, and at that point, I was kind of going through a thing where I really want to take the village to the next level.
Yeah.
And I knew, like, man, a lot of people that I knew at the time, they were sober. Like they kind of took a lot of extra stuff out of their lifestyle so that they could level up. So this dude was all about it, because he wasn't just like, hi, bye. He was like, hey, tell me more about the village. Take my number down. Let's rap when you come back to Hawaii. I got back to Hawaii. This dude stayed the course. We ended up jumping on like a 2-hour call after this dude finished like a 13-mile bike ride. And I was like, damn, man. But what he inspired me to do was give up alcohol for going over a year now.
Congratulations.
I just made it, and I give him his flowers, because doing that opened up my mind, gave me so much clarity, and it made me really see, and it kind of removed me from circles. It removed me from like the late night barbecues that, like, hey, come hang out. And I was able to wake up a little bit earlier. I started to see like my vision of the village got a little bit more clearer. And I looked at the people I surrounded myself this past year. It was a lot more business people that own businesses. It was more influential people. And I looked at like, man, okay, like now coming to 2026, I can't even like explain how stoked I am. But I want to give you your flowers on that, is because along the way, you checked up on, shot me a text, you know what I mean? Like, and like for somebody like you don't have to do that. You know what I mean? You are so busy traveling, going. I mean, you went to Italy, I think. One time you shot, like, hey, I'm gonna jump on this plane and whatever. But you still want to see people win.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people, I feel like, they say it, but they don't show it. And you do, because we have like almost like a personal thing where you check up once in a great while, or you'll connect me with somebody. And I remember you said something like, some people are on their way. If I can just make that connection or give them that email, I will. Yeah. Why does that mean so much to you, seeing people win? Because a lot of people say it, a lot of people don't do it, though.
Yeah. But I think it goes back to my childhood. You know what I mean? When I lost so much at an early age, right? I know how it feels to not have anything.
Yeah.
Right? And so I've always said that if, in fact, I get to a point of success, whatever success actually looks like, and I have the resources and or relationships to help people, I would do that in a heartbeat, because I know how it feels to not have.
And I commend you because you do it, Oos. Like, I appreciate that big time.
And so not only that, as you had mentioned that in terms of, I thank you for the flowers, or because we're in Hawaii, the lays. You know what I mean? I thank you for the lays. I thank you for that. But it's just the way I was raised, right? Like, shout out to my older brother, man, my hero, that, the way we were raised was, when you are of service, when you help others, right? You do that from the kindness of your heart, and you do it unconditionally, and no one needs to know, right? Because in essence, you're just a vessel. And I had text you that, right? Every time you had, acknowledged anything that, I have done, whatnot. And it was just to say that, man, in essence, I honor being in a position to be the vessel to help you on your journey. And in that sense, I'm blessed to be able to do that, right? To be in a position to help, right? So it's again, along my journey, man, and especially because I guess you could say with the utmost humility, I say this, that my journey has been so unique because there's not a lot of us Polynesians that are operating at this level. So I knew it came with a huge responsibility and obviously a privilege to represent our people in the most professional way.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I saw a pattern, right? Recently blessed again to be invited to Bentonville, Arkansas, where Walmart is, and connect with other folks. And we was able to land that deal, and we're launching in Walmarts in 2026, right?
Nice, man.
I say that is because I saw this pattern in my specific entrepreneurial journey where I was given these opportunities to be in these pitch rooms where a lot of our people have never been. So knowing that, I said, man, I walk into these rooms with the utmost gratitude, but at the same time knowing that I'm representing our people. Yeah. And I have to be able to perform, build these relationships, do great business to be able to open up this door to the next generation to come in there.
Because it's not just for you.
No,
it's for
not,
people like me.
It's for every,
you know what I mean?
That never had a voice.
Exactly.
That never had a platform. That never had these high level relationships, right? So
and send the message of like, you can do it.
You can do it. You can actually do it, which is why, wherever we're at, we try to give as much content. And so that way our people can actually see it, because I could see it really resonates for our folks, right? But to say, to answer your question in terms of wanting to see people win, there's some about, again, this goes back, if you've been around successful people, right? One, very, very confident. They're very self-aware of themselves, right? Two, they love seeing people win. Yeah. Why? It's because they understand how hard the journey has been.
And it doesn't take away from their winning.
No, because remember, think about that. People always say that. Like I came across another poly entrepreneur, cool cat, but he was so stuck on like, I don't want to give it to this person. The whole gatekeeping concept or whatever. But what I had to bring to him, what I had to bring to light, and I had to really be very, very transparent. I said, if you really think about your statement, that's actually a sense of insecurity. Because what you're saying is that you're not trying to open up this door because you're not insecure. You're not insecure in the product or service you provide.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I say is like, no, like I want everybody to come up in here. I want everybody, especially my people.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't take away or digress from anything that I'm actually doing. And the more I can actually provide whatever resources and relationships I have for our people, the better the community becomes.
Yeah.
Right? And so
we're building our people.
And we're building our people. And so I've always there's a great quote that I came across. I shared this with my son a lot of the time. It was like, I love when I see my neighbor winning, because that means God's in the neighborhood.
Ooh.
Right? Because that basically says that you're next.
Yeah.
If you keep going doing what you're doing, right? You're actually next.
Yeah.
Right? So
you're close by, man.
Yeah, you're close by. So a contingency that I always have, especially when I'm advising a lot of our Samoan youth or Polynesian parents, is utilize me as a resource.
Yeah.
All my relationships I have is yours now. Okay? But you got to utilize it.
Yeah.
And whatever connections I have is yours. Now, granted, if in fact you want these deals or this relationship, obviously I'm going to vet what you've done so far to make sure that once I connect you guys, you're ready for the big leagues now.
And also, too, not ruin your reputation and the years of what you've accumulated.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, but it doesn't negate the fact that I've always said that behind closed doors, like whatever resource or relationships I have is yours.
Yeah.
And I've gotten it to this point for our community. Yeah. This is why I'm actually doing it, which is why when we talk or other Polynesian entrepreneurs, I'm so privileged and honored to be on these calls, because this is what I've been called to actually do. Mm-hmm. So to not pick up the call or to not return your text is doing a disservice to my calling. I'm supposed to actually do this.
Nice.
All right, so.
You talk about being able to just share free game and give resources, but touch upon the thing that I think people miss. You can get all the information you want. You can get all the network and connections, but if you don't do something with that, you ain't never gonna make it.
Yeah.
So talk about like putting in the work that what you say, because even like this, right? I tell my kids, because I want to talk. You talked about how you call your son champ, right, from when he was young, speaking life. I tell my kids this: I believe in anything that you want to do, what you want to become, where you want to be, what you want to get, but your actions, your work ethic has to meet what you say. Because if not, you'll be like everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How is it for you to see people really have to match the grind with what they say?
They say that, the difference between those that are good and great is execution.
Ooh,
Right. So we can talk about, great entrepreneur stories and read great books and podcasts or whatnot. But the question is what are you going to do with this information once this is all done? Like you in those silent hours of the night,
Yeah.
like what will you do with this information? Because a lot of the times, when I'm asked whether it's a DM or a call, like, oh, do you have any books? Do you have any podcasts? And I'm like, I could give you all the great ones, right? And there's some classics. But the question is, what you gonna do with it? And again, there's parallels to football, parallels to sports. I could call to play, and I could put you in the game. But will you perform at a high level? Did you do what it takes to actually perform once those lights go on, right? And going back to my son, as you had mentioned, like that was grooming. That me calling him the champ since he was born and he's 26 now, going back to confidence, right? And the irony behind it, he's actually named after me. And I actually never called him by his name.
Wow.
Right? So since the day he opened his eyes, he was the champ. So what does that do to a kid for 26 years? That every single day of his life, now granted, too, and I want to make this clear, I've done this in front of people, right? In front of my family, public forum, and then behind closed door. Champ. That's all he actually knows. Building his confidence in that, right? So, I mean, obviously that confidence piece is a huge one, but it's me being able to exude that myself, in terms of being an example of that. It goes a long way, right?
Leadership. Is there something, maybe like a daily routine? I mean, obviously leadership has come through your confidence over time of obviously your journey. But what kind of habits do you assume on a daily, taking care of your health, avoiding certain foods, your workout plan, whatever it may be, that kind of cements your ability to lead? Because I think you said it before.
Great point.
Everybody got a bunch of things that they got to do. It's what you prioritize.
Yeah.
So talk upon that a little bit.
So first off, I'm a results-based person, right? And then going back to, when you mentioned, giving my lays in terms of the sobriety thing, right? I knew that going down this journey, I did a self-audit, right? And I said, okay, kind of mentally whiteboarded this. I'm like, okay, this thing is called an entrepreneur journey. There's no guarantees. You're launching a business with whatever resources you have. You don't know how long this is actually going to take, but you do know it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Days, months, years. So I said, okay, if this is going to take years, let me look at my actual lifestyle and do a self-audit. Mind, body, and spirit. And if this is going to take years, then physically, what are the foods that I'm eating? Are there any extracurricular, I guess you could say, things that I'm actually consuming that's not conducive to creating a successful path to actually produce that result?
Yeah.
And if they are present within my life, I have to make a logical decision to say, okay, well, again, I'm a results-based person. In order for me to get that result, I have to eliminate all these things. Okay? So what I did was slowly but surely, okay, the food that I'm eating, if I'm drinking alcohol, smoking, whatnot, whatever that is, that's not going to produce this result. And since a kid, I've been wired in the sense where, okay, it's done. And I'm kind of like cold turkey kind of guy.
Yeah,
like,
you can just
this done. We're done. Because of the fact that I'm addicted to this result.
Yeah.
So food, I decided years ago, going on 15, 20 years, all right, let me cut out the red meat, let me cut out the chicken, let me cut out the fish. And so today's more of a plant-based type diet, right? Because of the result, okay? Second, alcohol, again, grew up around that. Let me eliminate that. It produces a specific result. Content I'm consuming, podcasts, books that I'm reading, it produced a result, right? And then lastly, a daily routine, as you had mentioned, right? I noticed over the years that when I do this specific daily routine, which consists of affirmations, meditation, prayer, and then at the least 10 miles a day, once I actually do this specific routine, by the time I get to the shop or by the time I'm on Zoom meetings or in-person meetings, I'm firing on all cylinders now.
Yeah.
I'm operating at such a high vibration that, as you had mentioned, by the time you meet me, you feel the energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's coming off,
Yeah.
right? Before we even actually speak. And I do that because it produces a specific result. Now, granted, on the flip side of that, if me drinking produced the result, then I'd probably still be drinking, right? You and I, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it didn't produce the result, right?
So we ain't doing that.
We're not doing that, right? So, and then not only that, I could say this with the utmost clarity. I believe I made a spiritual arrangement with God.
Come on,
right? And in order for you to actually have this specific blessing and or progress, something has to sacrifice. Okay. And so when I decided, next year will be 18 years that I made this spiritual pact, that I'm gonna cut out alcohol and whatever, all these other things, right? Again, this is me spiritually, right? From a spiritual standpoint.
This is for you.
For me.
Yes.
For me. Once I did that, the blessings just overflow. Now, granted, has it been all, sunsets and no, it hasn't. But at the least, what I did see was literally overnight, the blessing starts to pour. And another thing that I gained that you kept mentioning too, and I've always said this, whether it's to my son, business partners, and family, was clarity, right? Yeah. Because as you go down this entrepreneur journey, the one thing you're going to face is storm, right? And it's going to hit from every different angle. But if you have clarity, you're able to see the problem for what it is, right? Yeah. And then make decisions, make adjustments as we do in sports, pivot, and then keep going. However, if you have food fog, if you're drinking, if you're hungover,
you won't be able to
you won't be able to perform at a high level. So that's why I do this routine in the morning. And I did the routine today. So that way, by the time we connect and we're on camera, I could deliver the message. And it connects, right? So, and hopefully it does connect.
No, it does, man. It does. As we kind of round around third base right now.
Okay.
Island Avenue right now. What's what are some things that you're currently working on, and what is like your outlook? Like, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Yeah, we're closing out the year with the collab with Cal, and that has been a dream come true. Having played for Cal, and then now being able to collab with them from an apparel standpoint for the bowl game. So that was again a box check to close out 2025. At the top of 26, we're actually relaunching back in Tilly's, a big retailer on the West Coast and throughout the country. We're going into about 10 doors out the gate, so that's exciting.
Nice.
And then obviously continue to scale within Nordstrom's, right, into more doors. We got some big collabs. I can't actually say it right on camera.
We'll bring you back to drop it. You know what I mean?
Had to sign a couple NDAs for that, right? And then, as I had mentioned, exciting project that we have with swimwear within Walmart that's launching in the fall. And so, just excited to continue to expand the brand. Got some great collabs and expansion plans for the brand, and also on from an e-commerce standpoint, hired on a specific team to really man that component. So definitely exciting times for the brand, and at the same time continuing to be able to share the Island Ave story on platforms like yours, man. Just honored to actually be on there.
I appreciate that. What kind of responsibility do you feel to continue to keep doing what you're doing? Like, what is that, like that response for you? Like,
well, again, the responsibility that I hold is, to our people. It's to make sure that as I continue to scale the brand and it takes me into these high level rooms and or, corporate partnerships, that I represent our people at the highest level in the most professional light. And that comes with a lot of accountability, and it comes with a huge responsibility. And I don't take that lightly, right? So I know that, again, it's a privilege and an honor to be in these rooms, but it's on behalf of our people, because there's going to be a huge generation that's going to come behind me that's going to need these deals. And if in fact I did what I'm supposed to do and called to do, that journey will be a lot easier for them to actually walk into those doors to be able to seal that deal. So that's the responsibility that I know that I have, and I'm honored to actually do it.
If we fast forward 30 years from now, somebody asks a question, do you know who Falvai is, or ask something about you? What would you want somebody to, or how do you want yourself to be remembered as?
Oh, man, great question. First off, a man of God, right? Great father and husband, great family man. And more so the characteristics of what I stood for. Man of integrity, honor, respect, love, community, It was more so those traits, right? And the fact that that I was a great, husband and father to my family. Aside from whatever accolades that came along with entrepreneurship, that if that doesn't happen, this doesn't happen, right? So everything, making sure that the home front and the community was solid first in order to get all the world, I guess, accolades, right? So hopefully that I'm known for that first, as well as a great friend, man, a great person within the community that gave back as much as he could, that uplifted and inspired the community, both home and abroad, and that I did my part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did my part, on behalf of our folks that again, I think we're just scratching the surface now. We're starting a huge generation of entrepreneurs, and it's going to start with us. And my goal is to just do my part, for our folks. So.
Nice. I like that. There's no right answer to this. This is probably one of the last couple questions, but if there's a kid or a young cat out there that's watching and they're struggling between culture and purpose, what is some wise words you could offer them right now?
Culture and purpose. I think in a sense they're tied to each other, right? Like, you wake up one day and you ask these questions as a young person, what is my purpose, right? Because, especially within the Polynesian community, we all think our purpose is becoming, an NFL player, right? Or NBA player or whatnot, right? When in essence, that's just a talent that God gave you, but it's going to open it up to your actual purpose, right? Because your playing years are so minute compared to living life. The second thing is I think, culture is tied to that, in terms of your identity, right? What you stand for. And I think there's a lot of traits within our Polynesian community and within our Polynesian culture that you can actually take on into business and career paths,
That's
right?
positive stuff.
That's actually positive stuff. And I think, growing up in, I guess you could say, the diaspora or even in America, like the Fa'alavelave concept has gotten a bad rap, right? But if you think about the core of what it stands for, is actually when one part of the community is hit a low point or is experiencing a loss, the village gathers and you help.
Yeah.
Right?
Help support.
That's not common in a lot of communities. No. Right? And so when I explained that concept to some of my Maoli homies growing up in LA, they didn't understand that. They're like, wow, you guys actually do that. He was like, yeah. Right? So the gesture of saying, like, when someone, is going through hard times, the community gets together and you help.
Yeah.
So it's traits like that within our culture that kind of shapes who you are. But also I think it sheds light on, your purpose, right? So whatever purpose you decide that you're going to actually find and embody, I think a lot of the culture is within that, right? And a big part of that is, the concept of tautu, of service, right? The greatest amongst you is a servant to all.
Go on.
Right? And that's biblical. And that's spiritual. So my thinking is I think a lot of our purpose, especially as Polynesians, is tied to being of service. What that looks like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that my specific purpose or what it transpired to be is an entrepreneur and being able to share our wins and losses in real time so our people can actually see it. Because a lot of times they see the big collabs and what's on Instagram. But I like to be on, your platform to share the losses, right? And I gave you a great example of, we talk about the Nordstrom stuff or meeting with Nike or whatnot, that in terms of being able to land a Nordstrom deal, you got to be prepared for what a purchase order actually looks like and how to actually service a purchase order. Because it's not like when they place the order, they're giving you money to produce the order, right? So, I'll give you an example. If the purchase order is for 100 racks and it takes you, let's just call it half to actually produce that. Well, where the 50 racks at? You know what I mean? So, right? It's okay, cool. This is great, right? On the surface, it looks great on Instagram. So now it's that part of being able to address that, because it could be a gift and a curse.
And that's just one thing.
That's just one component.
Whatever,
right?
You know what I mean? What you got projected or what you're currently in.
Right. And that's just that deal.
Yeah.
And then what happens if that, a great problem to have, that goes great. And then you have to continue to service the order. And then, obviously scaling and expansion means more capital. Yeah. Well, where's the capital?
Yeah.
Right. So I want to share a lot of the behind the scenes kind of corporate protocol and or processes with our people, because that way they see like, man, yeah, I want to be in the Nordstroms, or I want to, meet with Nike at their headquarters. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Like,
What
what
does
does
it look
that actually
like?
look
How does it
like?
go about? Yeah.
I shared with Romeo Valentine yesterday, like, we've been working on the Nike collab going on almost 2.5 years now.
Crazy.
We almost got it across the finish line within the first 6 months. And then within Nike, if you follow Nike, they fired the CEO, there's a new guy come on. Restructuring, people getting laid off. And so that specific team that I work with are all in different departments now. So it's up to Fawad to keep this concept on course and tapping in with them and flying up there on my own dime to make sure that we get this project and bring it to light. Why? Right? So our people can actually see that we can actually do a collab with Nike. Right? So it's not just a shoe. It's symbolic of inspiration. So our people can say, man, you know what? Island Ave did that. So we can do that as well.
To wrap this up, what does the village mean to you?
Oh, man.
And also, too, was there a hard point in life, that a village, the representation of the village, really showed up for you?
Yeah. The village was Island Ave, right? Ironically, growing up on the street within LA and specifically in the city of Carson, where there was so much of a presence of us. Okay? Again, at one point, there was like 10, 12 Samoan families that grew up on this one street. So, I shared this in other podcasts. There was a full-blown, Salfai in the middle of the street. And I jokingly said, I don't even know if they got permits for this. Like, they just literally cut off the street. Like, there was no barricade.
What is that,
like,
permits?
Yeah, like, I'm like, what about people that need to go to their house? Like,
we need
how the
approval
car is
for
supposed
this?
to go through? Like, there was literally two Mackays, like, sitting in the middle of the street. So when I saw that, like, growing up in LA, like, man, that was my village.
Yeah.
Right? I saw a presence of our culture. I saw a presence of our music. I saw a presence of our ceremony, right? I did also see, too, that when there was hard times for some of those Samoan families that grew up on Island Ave, that the village came together and helped. So, in essence, I seen a piece of Samoa in LA growing up. I didn't know it at the time, but I saw that, right? So the village is really everything. So my goal through Island Ave is to build a global village now and share some of those same characteristics and or attributes with the world. Just creatively do it through apparel and do it through podcasts and do it through speaking engagements, right? So to answer your question, man, the village was everything, and it's the ethos of what Island Ave stand for.
Nice. I really enjoyed this, man. I look forward to this about a year now, so I'm glad that God made it perfect timing, man. His time is never off, so I appreciate his timing to make this happen. You want to add in anything before we wrap this up?
No, man. In conclusion, again, as I've always said, man, thank you so much, Rocky, for having me on the Village podcast, man, and being able to share the Island Ave story. Phenomenal questions, because more often than not, I don't have this platform to actually, connect with our community, right? And then not only that, I think the reason why the Island Ave story really resonates with our community is because how we actually verbalize it, right? There's certain way in which we engage from a dialogue standpoint where, we connect without even having to say anything, right? So, my goal is to always, represent our people, be able to provide, gems along my path with our folks to kind of light, provide the light, be the light, along their path as well. But again, thank you so much for, having me on today. Truly an honor to be here to share the story. But congratulations again. I have to give you your legs, right?
Thanks, man. Appreciate
and your
this.
progress, not only as an entrepreneur, but most importantly as a human being and as a father, right? And I don't think we get that enough to be able to acknowledge each other as fathers and how we've raised our young ones. Because in essence, that's our calling. That's our responsibility, and that's our gift to the world of how we raise these little ones to make sure that they go off in the world and be able to connect with their purpose and then bless whoever they were called to actually bless, so
their assignments.
So to be able to come on your podcast here on, on your soil,
the great 808, man.
In the 808, baby,
Yeah.
like it's truly an honor, and I'm glad, man. Again, thank you so much for carving out the time to have me on, and
man.
shout out to everybody tuning in, and continues to support the Village podcast, man, and Rocky and his journey. Anything, as I mentioned, whatever resources and or relationships I have, especially on behalf of our people, it's truly yours. So thank you
likewise,
again
man.
also for everything, man.
Appreciate it, man. Hey, Village family, I can't tell you, man, how stoked I was to, step this up and actually get it done. For you guys tuning in, man, I hope this really inspires you guys to really just be that energy, be that light to the people that you come across and come in contact with, because you really don't know, man, where you can shift or where you can guide them to be. And at the end of the day, it's for all of us to give back, to contribute, to help pour into somebody else, on the side of us, behind us, whatever it may be. But, happy holiday season. By the time that this wraps up, it'll probably be, right in the first week of January. But, man, Oos, I appreciate this time, man. So many gems, so many great things in this episode. But I hope you guys take it to heart, man. Like I said, man, the Village is a community of inspiration, elevation, and empowerment. And I really hope that you guys continue to live that.